After a wonderful visit to Alleppey, Kerala, we went a bit north to Kochi. Kochi historically has been known as Cochin. It's been an important trading seaport for over 2,000 years. Amongst the known traders were the Jews that arrived in large numbers when the Romans pushed them out in the first century. And they found their way to Kochi and they were given space to live and trade in the area by the local Raja or the king. They were important contributors to the economy in Kochi. So the Raja at the time allocated a space and named it Jewtown in the 1300s. In the 1500s, a trader by the name of Vasco da Gama from Portugal arrived. He came via ship across the southern part of Africa, Cape of Good Hope, and arrived in the 1500s as a trader. Soon thereafter, he went back and brought an army, and thus began the Portuguese invasion of Kochi in the 1500s. In the 1650s, the Dutch invaded uh, Kochi and pushed out the Portuguese. The Dutch had some important contributions to the area, and they were there till about the mid 1800s when the British extended their empire into Kochi and declared Kochi as a princely British state run by one of the local Rajas. Kochi, as a princely state, was one of the first of the last princely states to join the Indian Union in 1947. While at Kochi, we stayed at the Dutch Bungalow Hotel. It's a boutique hotel located in Fort Kochi. It has access to many of the tourist sites. It is a smaller hotel with likely less than 15 rooms, and so we got great customer service while we were there. Our first stop in Kochi was to go see the fishing nets of Kochi. There are about four or five of these structures, and these are massive nets held together by wooden poles that pretty much are let under the water and they catch the fish and then they're pulled back up. What you will notice is that there's a lot of birds sitting there waiting for the nets to come up so they can have their first digs at the fish. Here's a view from behind the fishing nets. What you will see is a long rope with stones attached to it. These ropes are used to pull in the fishing net, and the rocks help the cantilever action to bring the fishing nets up. Here is a picture of the catch of the day made from the fishing nets, and they are sold right there alongside the shore. You could, as a tourist, buy a fish and take it to a local restaurant within walking distance of the area and let them know that this is where the fish came from, and they will gladly cook it for you in the manner that you see fit. Our next stop was to visit the St. Francis Church. It's a Catholic church built by the Portuguese in the 1600s. In fact, the Portuguese built a lot of Catholic churches, which the British tore many of them down, but this is the only one that remained. Since then, of course, there are many more Catholic churches that have come up. But back to this church, this is the one where Vasco da Gama, who started as a trader, then became an invader and stayed in the Kochi area and liked it so much that he passed away there, and his remains were buried in this church. They were later removed and taken to Portugal. Nevertheless, that's what this church is about. Our next stop was the Matancherry Palace. This was built in the 16th century by the Portuguese. It was done as an appeasement for the king in the area after the Portuguese had plundered a temple, causing a widespread revolt amongst the people. And to quell the revolt, they committed to the king that they would build a palace, which they did. When the Dutch came, they occupied this palace for a while and used this as a center of administration. During that time, they made many geological surveys of Kerala and left copies of the surveys in the palace, some of which are still hanging on the walls there. The originals, I am told, are in Holland. During our walk through Kochi, we came across this very unique tree. They call it the rain tree. It is one that collects a lot of water during the rain and then sheds it over time, which comes in really handy in Kochi because Kochi is a hot and humid climate location. Our next stop was Jewtown. This is a town that was established in the 1300s in favor of the Jews who had begun to arrive in the first century AD. Over time, Jews arrived from Spain, Holland, and other places in Europe. And in the 1600s, they were allowed to build a synagogue. They call it the Pardesi Synagogue, which is the Pardesi means foreigner. What's unique about the synagogue, which is a place for meeting for all religions besides the Jews as well, is that the clock tower has four sides and it has four different languages for the letters on the clock. On one side, of course, is the Latin numbers, and the other side, I saw the clock having the face of the Jew script. The one other interesting fact about Jewtown today is most of the Jews have left. I am told there's only one remaining Jew in Jewtown, and yes, the town area still continues to be called Jewtown and is a big attraction for tourists. Our next stop was to come back to Fort Kochi and visit the local museum. This local museum used to be a Dutch garrison. Yes, it was a garrison complete with cannons facing the sea. It housed soldiers there. These garrisons, back in the day by the Europeans, were designed in a manner where there used to be escape routes, and this one had escape routes down below to the sea, to the ocean, where they could escape in boats if they wanted to. Outside the garrison were a couple of bungalows where likely the administration or the military officers used to live from the Dutch group. Also in Fort Kochi is the jail that the British built to keep the freedom fighters of India before the independence. I will now leave you with a couple of short videos about Kochi and the sea. Thank you.
Named after the Lord Wellington. That's an artificial island where we have our Cochin port. So the Cochin port was built inside. They made the railways, airways, the warehouses, everything. So all the trading, everything happened.